Good morning, everybody. I'm out on the farm this morning. We're just going to take a look at some beets. I wanted to show you how they grow before we go into the kitchen and cook them. Alright, so here we have some beets that are about 4 weeks old. I've planted them about every 12 inches, about every foot, and in each spot there's about 3 beets planted. So what happens is they grow together and then we pick them one at a time to give the others space. So again, these are some that are about 4 weeks old, so about 30 days. And then here are some that are about twice that old. These are about 8 weeks old. And these ones are about ready to harvest. We picked some for our meal today. So there we have, there's a candy stripe beet. You can tell the difference. The candy stripes have the more green leaves, and the red beets have the red veined leaves. And down there you can see some of the red beets. Some nice ones. They're getting bigger and bigger. And again, these are about 8 weeks old. So every 4 weeks I plant some more beets throughout the fall, so that we always have some beets ready to eat. Alright everybody, we've seen how the beets grow. We're going to pop inside to the kitchen now and cook some roasted beets with shallots and fresh dill. Good morning everyone, it's Joel here. This week for the vegetable of the week, we are covering beets. We're going to talk about the great root vegetable that comes out of the ground. Beautiful colors. Let's take a look at it. Our ingredients for this dish are beets. We have 2 different kinds of beets. I'll show you them in more detail in a minute. We have some small shallots. I intentionally chose small shallots. You can also use any kind of onion you have, and I'll show you the size you want to chop it to. Then we have some fresh dill. You could substitute that for another fresh herb. Then we have a little bit of lemon juice, some ground black pepper, some salt, and some olive oil. And that's everything we're going to need for this dish. Alright, so let's talk about our 2 different kinds of beets. This is a red beet. This is your standard beet. There's a lot of different varieties of these, but these are red through the stems and the bulb, and then they have green leaves. And then this is a candy stripe beet. When you cut these and compare them to the red beet, they're quite distinct. They have a beautiful like candy cane pattern, whereas the red beets are deep red through and through. When you're cooking with beets, you can cook with the greens. You're just going to want to differentiate ones that are beat up. You don't really want to use that. But like that green looks pretty good, and these young greens look really, really good. The earlier you harvest a beet, the better the greens are. Alright, for this dish, we're going to be roasting the beets, and so we're going to leave them in pretty big pieces. So for a beet this size, I'm just going to cut that in half, and beets this size, I'm going to quarter. And I'm going to take off these kind of like little ratty hair pieces, and I'm just going to put the beets that I have chopped over to the side. So I want to keep the sizes like really similar, and that's something you want to do whenever you're roasting food in the oven. Because if you have things that are too drastic in size difference, some may cook through while others are still like raw. So I'm just going to do that with the rest of the beets. Beets are really great boiled, roasted, or sauteed, and some people eat them raw, but tread lightly with eating them raw. Start small, because it's a semi-common allergy for people to be allergic to raw beets. I am, and it's not a big deal. It's just you get a little scratchy throat. So just the first, if you've never had raw beets before, just start with a little bit. A lot of people don't like beets, which I think is just because they haven't had them prepared well. They're very earthy,
They have a great like meaty texture when they're cooked just right. And they're one of my favorite vegetables. Definitely one of my favorite cold weather, fall and winter vegetables. I'm gonna leave that just like that. There you go. All right, I'm just gonna toss my beets in this bowl, and then I'm going to process my shallots. So shallots are a kind of onion. We've worked with them before in these videos. Great for French cooking especially. But what I'm gonna be doing is just taking the skins off, and I'm gonna roast these shallots whole, which is why I chose small ones. If you work with like a white onion or a yellow onion, just cut it like into maybe quarters. Just cut your onion into quarters or maybe eighths. Just whatever seems appropriate, where your pieces of onions are maybe just slightly larger than your beets. Cool. All right, I have my shallots all peeled. I just want to get them down to the right size, so they're about the same size as my beets. They can be a little bit bigger. Some of them I'm going to do whole. Most of them I'm going to cut in half widthwise. All right, and then into this bowl, I want to add my olive oil first. I'll be pretty generous. And I want to add a decent palmful of salt. Quite a lot of black pepper. And then some lemon juice. And I want to mix it around with a spoon. I want to see that everything is nice and coated with the olive oil and is picking up the salt and vinegar, or the salt and black pepper. So that's looking pretty good. Nice and coated. That's going to keep them from burning, and it's going to help them caramelize in the oven. Okay, I have my oven set to 450 degrees, which is pretty hot, but that's how you want to roast vegetables generally. So I have a nice coating on here. I want to use a pan where everything has a little bit of space. It's something we've talked about before, but you just want to give things space so that the moisture can evaporate. Things won't get as crisp if there's a lot of moisture. It's just like when you get French fries and you leave them in the box, like a to-go box that's closed, the heat can't escape, and so the moisture gets trapped and the French fries get all soggy. I'm just going to use a rubber spatula to get the last of that great little marinade on there. Making a mess. I'll just jiggle this around in the pan again, and then I'm going to go ahead and put it in the oven. And again, that's 450 degrees, and it'll probably take about half an hour. All right, we took our vegetables out of the oven. The onions are like perfect like that. They can squeeze out from the other ones easily. The beets just have like a little bit of a crunch still to them, but they're soft through. What I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take these and put them into the bowl that we started them in. Still a little bit of oil in there, and I'm going to toss them with some fresh dill. And then I'm going to put them into this bowl. And there we have it. A nice bowl of roasted shallots and beets.